Hello everyone, my name is Sankalp Mohanty. I'm a graduate student at the University of Florida, and the following presentation virtually exfoliates the work and the findings of a new kind of technique that can be employed in multifocus image fusion area. I named it as a Neoteric hybrid approach. The talk flow of the entire presentation would start with the objectives, then what exactly is image fusion, the need for image fusion, the various types of image fusion, then a transform domain method known as discrete wavelet transformation that is used, then the various spatial domain methods, and the hybrid approach that is where I combine both the aforementioned methods. Then the outcome of the entire findings will be evaluated using some performance evaluation metrics. The results will be tabulated, and there is also a future scope of research in this area where we find the optimal number of decomposition levels in DWT. Finally, the conclusion and the references. So, to start with, the objectives of the entire presentation and the research was first to review the techniques that are currently used for image fusion, especially in the field of multifocus image fusion. There we implemented three varied methods of image fusion, one from the transform domain and the other two from spatial domain. Thereafter, we compared the performance of all of them and developed a new kind of approach, which, combining the best features from the transform and the spatial domain, will give us a visually plausible, coherent fused image. All the fusion results were evaluated and conclusions drawn. So, what exactly is image fusion? In a layman's term, image fusion can be best described as combining the best features of two or more images and getting a single coherent fused image. Technically, image fusion combines information from multiple images of the same scene to get a composite image that is more suitable for human visual perception or for further image processing tasks. Image processing involving image fusion can be taken place in different levels of image fusion, that is pixel level, feature level, and decision level. Image fusion at pixel level means fusion at the lowest level, referring to the merging of measured physical parameters. It generates a fused image in which each pixel is determined from a set of pixels in various sources and serves to increase the useful information content of a scene. Whereas feature level fusion first employs feature extraction, for example by segmentation procedures, separately on each source image and then performs a fusion based on the extracted features. The features can be identified by characteristics such as contrast or shape, size, texture, etc. Finally, the symbol level fusion allows the information from multiple images to be effectively used at highest level of abstraction. The input images are usually processed individually for information extraction and classification. In my entire process, I've used pixel level implementation. That's the lowest level of fusion where everything is much more efficient. So, what's the need for image fusion? Various features of image fusion as applied in areas such as image classification, robot vision, medical imaging, satellite imaging, even concealed weapon detection. All these areas can veritably use the advantages of image fusion. The different types of image fusion. Basically, broadly we divide image fusion into two broad domains, that is spatial domain fusion and transform domain fusion. Of all the methods that are tabulated here, I used sharpness based image fusion from the spatial domain and the discrete wavelet transformation from the transform domain. So, the first technique, the discrete wavelet transformation. What it does is it allows image decomposition into different coefficients, preserving image information, then integrating all these decompositions to form a composite representation. Consequently, it reconstructs a fused image by preserving an image inverse multi-resolution transform. What it does entirely is it takes the image which can be represented as a raw signal, and from there we obtain many other signals, but all corresponding to different frequency bands but represent the same raw signal, best described in this flow chart. So we have a signal, we pass it through various filters, a low pass and a high pass filter. So when you pass through the low pass filter, we get an approximation coefficient, and from high pass filter we get detail coefficients. So if one image is there, it can be divided into, for example, okay, so what we have here is, as you can see in this diagram, a particular image, when passed through DWT process, it gets divided in first level of decomposition into one approximation and three details. This is the second level of decomposition that has been shown here, and this is the third level of decomposition that has been shown here. So the various steps in DW approach is, first, each image is divided into subsequent wavelet coefficients, that is one approximation and three details. And for the details of the wavelet coefficient, we find a silent feature. In this case, we use local energy in the neighborhood of a coefficient as the silent feature. It has been formulated in this equation. Then the fusion rule that has been incorporated in this DWT process is, which of the coefficient has the largest salience or the largest local energy coefficient, that has been taken as a fused coefficient, irrespective of the other coefficients in the neighborhood. So, and for approximation it is different. We used kind of a weighted average in approximation for each of the approximated images pixel levels, and all these new sets of coefficients were then involved in inverse DWT to get the fused image. In sharpness based image fusion, it is much more better than the transform domain fusions because these methods are shift invariant and they are much more computationally efficient, and they avoid the problem of moving objects and misregistration of source images, etc. In sharpness based image fusion, we basically select the sharper image blocks from the source images and get them incorporated in the final image. In this method, we use two different sharpness method criterions. That is, one is visibility and one other is variance. What happens in visibility is we find, or f of ij is a particular pixel, and we find the average gray level over the image where f bar represents that, and this entire computation finds the visibility of a window of images. Same applies for variance for this formulation. So this block diagram explains the entire sharpness based image fusion. What we do here is we take one, so we have both the source images A and B, so we decompose them into even number of blocks. So these partition images are then used to calculate block sharpness values. For example, this sharpness value of this, we have a particular value here and a particular value here. There we compare them using a fusion rule, and the best of them is taken forward as the fused image coefficient here. This is done for all the blocks here and all the blocks here compared, and we get a final fused image. So these are the steps involved that basically I iterated before. The input image is divided into non-overlapping blocks with the size of m cross n, and the ith block elements ai and bi are compared based on the sharpness values, and if one of the sharpness value is higher than the other, that is taken in the fused image, and if it is less, the other one is taken, and if both of them are equal, then we take an average of both of them. Then finally, the hybrid approach. Here what we do is we combine the efficiencies of both the transform and the spatial domain of DWT and the sharpness based fusions. So we get a kind of a robust and an efficient multifocus image. The various steps is, first, initially both the source images are processed using DWT so that we get respective wavelet coefficients. In my research, I carried out up to one level of decomposition. So I get one approximation and three details for each of the source images. Thereafter, the sharpness based image fusion techniques were applied for each of the details and approximation coefficients separately, and we get kind of eight outputs, and comparing the block sharpness values, we get fused coefficients of each of the source images. So individually we do that for variance and for visibility. Then we compare the results of both of them and take the optimum fused coefficients. Then finally we do inverse transformation to get from the fused coefficients the final fused image. So this block diagram inherently describes the entire hybrid approach, where we have two source images which are processed by DWT, and then after DWT we get the coefficients from them. So what we do is, for each of the coefficient, the approximation and the details, we go for the individual spatial domain fusions, visibility and variance, and compare the results, and which of them is much more better or optimum. We take that value as our final coefficient, and from the coefficients, by involving inverse DWT, we get the fused image, which is a hybrid of them.